Hey, what's up guys, Totallydubbed here, and today I'm very much excited to be doing a review of the MSI GTX 1070. That is the Gaming X version of it, and I'd like to thank MSI hugely for actually sending me out for review. Now I know I'm a bit late to the game, pun intended, but hopefully this review will bring you something a little bit different from the others. Now without further ado, you might be wondering, how much is this card? Can I afford it? Well, in the UK you can find it on Amazon.co.uk for £420, and on Amazon USA you can find it for $406 without tax. So given the price range, in the US obviously you're getting a much better deal, but as I'm a UK reviewer I'm basing it on a UK price. Now, in terms of my background, I've done a lot of reviewing for graphics cards in the past. I've tried a lot of different ones, and what I really wanted to see is if the GTX 1070 was truly a way of replacing a single slot card, a double SLI slot configuration with a single slot card. And the reason I'm saying that is because I used to own SLI 680s, and that was needed in order to drive a 2K resolution, or 2.5K, however you want to see it. And the GTX 1070 with all boasted graphics performance and all of this hype around how much VRAM it has, which is 8GB of VRAM, I wanted to see if it really could replace that. And through this review, hopefully you'll be able to see that. Now, what you might be wondering now is, how does it look? Now, if the box wasn't a quite giveaway, here's some pictures on the screen which you can see how it looks. What's going to be most interesting is the fact that it has a DVI, 3 display ports, and a HDMI 2.0 output, which is going to be needed for any sort of monitor. I'm glad there's no VGA input in there, because that's well and truly gone. And the DisplayPort inputs there are, outputs there are good, because most people are actually moving to DisplayPort, especially when it comes to 4K resolution. Now, in terms of power, you're going to need a 6 plus 8 pin power connector from your PSU, pretty standard. I would suggest in terms of your overall power, you're going to need around 650 watts to 550 watts with this GPU plus your whole system, and I'll get into power draw in just a bit. In this model, it's got a nice little backplate at the back, and you've also got the MSI Dragon logo, which lights up. Most interestingly, the most interesting thing you're going to notice over here is that yes, it still uses the Twin Forza design and the Twin Forza 6 design in this respect. It's super silent, and I don't have a measurement to show you that, but it's super silent, even though when it's rendering videos, or when it's being put under severe load like Battlefield 1 or Battlefield 4, whatever it might be, at 2.5K and pushed onto ultra graphics. So even on load it was very silent, and I'll get into temperatures in just a bit. In terms of the looks and the build quality of the card, it looks fantastic, looks great. It's a 2-slot card, so do bear that in mind, and it's just a regular size. In terms of specs, the model I got had a GPU clock of 1582 megahertz, and its boost was 1772 megahertz. It has a bus width of 256 bits, a bandwidth of 256.3 gigabyte per second, and its memory size of 8 gigabyte, more specifically 8192 megabytes. I'm not going to go into the rest of the specs. You'll see a spec of GPU Z over here, which I took, and it'll give you an idea of how it looks like. What's interesting in terms of the specs, it runs on a Pascal architecture, which is a GP104 chip in there, and that is a new architecture, at least for NVIDIA, for the last year or so, and it brings added performance in terms of boosts throughout the card, be it for minimum FPS to max FPS, and also it has VR ready. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't able to test its VR capabilities because I don't have a VR headset, but I can tell you, looking around, such as reviews on like PC Advisor, VR was tested and it did fantastically versus a GTX 1080. In fact, there's very little difference between a 1080 and a 1070 in terms of VR performance. So if you're looking for VR, this card is definitely the one to go for. You get fantastic FPS, especially given its price versus a 1080. Now you might be wondering, what about its performance and all that shebang? Now before I do that, I want to talk about its power draw. Now you'll be able to see a benchmark over here that I've got of Battlefield 4 for multiplayer, Valley 1.0, Heaven and Windows Idle. You can see throughout these benchmarks that the 1070, given its power, does a fantastic job. You can see at max peak I found at 300 watts, that's everything. My system with the GPU inside was drawing 300 watts, meaning a 550 watt PSU will be more than sufficient for you gaming at this ridiculously good graphics card. So top marks to Nvidia for bringing that down. As you'll be able to see, SLI 680s back in the days took 500 watts on Battlefield 4. You can see how far we've come across in a few years. So power draw wise, hopefully that'll settle your nerves in terms of how much power you need. In terms of temperatures, now it does run a little bit hot. I found it to run at 75 centigrade, which is higher than SLI 680s, which actually caught me by surprise. But on the plus side, you couldn't hear a single thing. The fan speed as well, it ran to a 60% fan speed, which you'd expect it to be very loud. SLI 680s, I can guarantee you, were much louder, even though they ran at almost the same fan speed. And it just goes to show, again, how far the Twin Forza design has gone. So, must say, top marks to MSI for that. Although it runs a little bit hot, there's no worries in terms of running it for a long time. You don't hit the GPU bottleneck either in terms of the thermal threshold. So top marks there. Now let's move into synthetic benchmarks like Heaven 4.0. Now looking at Heaven 4.0, you'll be able to see a bunch of different benchmarks over here. That kind of rhymed. And you can see how the GTX 1070 absolutely trumps the rest of the cards over here. Now admittedly, the cards in this roundup are a little bit old, but you can see over the GTX 970 or even SLI 680s, which I thought was the pinnacle of GPUs, at least back in the day, that the 1070 does a fantastic job. So much so that it got me almost jaw dropped of how well the performance has come. Obviously, it's aided in terms of its 8GB VRAM versus like a SLI 680s, which were bottlenecked at 2GB VRAM. And these benchmarks, I should say, were all run at 2K, so 2560 times 1440p, everything set to Ultra and Extreme through the free versions of Heaven and Valley benchmark. So moving to Valley benchmark, you're able to see again here it does fantastically. Surprisingly, it's slightly beaten in its minimum FPS against SLI 680s on the Valley benchmark, but other than that, again, it trumps the rest and is a fantastic card. Finally, I'm moving on to the Battlefield 4 benchmark, and here you can really see it shine, especially when it comes to minimum FPS. A lot of people see a minimum FPS as being almost the most important benchmark, especially I remember when I was playing a lot of Battlefield 4, and I'm sorry I don't have Battlefield 1 benchmarks, but on Battlefield 4, even though it's a little bit outdated and it's still using DirectX 11, it just shows how well and how far GPUs have come. 66.3 FPS as a minimum FPS. That is amazing. You're gaming consistently at above 60 FPS, which is the gold standard when it comes to console versus PC gaming. So minimum FPS of 66 FPS with a maximum FPS at over 200, hitting the bottleneck of the benchmark, and averaging at 149 FPS means that I could truly game at 144 Hz without worrying about any sort of toning down of graphics. And the GTX 1070 was truly the only card I've come across that has provided me that. Obviously I haven't reviewed like the R3990 or crossfired them or the 1080, but given its price tag at the 1070 does a fantastic job. Which all draws me down to my conclusion. Is the card truly worth £420, and does it truly replace an SLI system? The answer is yes, it truly is. It replaces an SLI system which prevents you from having micro stutter, which was a big annoyance for me with the SLI 680. You might not notice it at first, but believe me, when you start using it for a long period of time, then compare it to a single card, then you'll notice micro stuttering, no matter your SLI bridge or whatever it was. Then you got the price into consideration. £420 might not be affordable to most, but if you can save up just that little extra buck, buying SLI 680s at £130 used each even though it works out much cheaper than a 1070, you're going to get a lot better performance in the long run with a 1070 over SLI 680s, or if you could SLI 960s for example, it provides you a massive boost. So I'm super impressed and very much would recommend a 1070 if you're buying a new system and you're looking for 2K gaming, VR gaming, 4K gaming even. I would suggest a 1070. If you're looking at 1080p gaming only, then I would highly suggest just getting a 960 for example. It's more than adequate, or a 1050 or 1060, whatever it is, just because you're not going to need that performance for a 1080p gaming, even at 144 Hz. I play at 2.8 on CSGO for example, which is not a graphically intense game, which you can consider it almost like 1080p gaming, and I consistently hit over 144 Hz. So if you're looking for 1080p gaming on like a game like Battlefield, then a 970 would do, or even a 1060 or 1050 will do as well. So do bear that in mind in terms of what you're going to be actually using it for. Anyway guys, hopefully you've enjoyed this review. As I said, I would highly suggest it, especially at its price tag. Especially coming into the Christmas period now, you might see it on sale, I don't know, but if it does drop under 420 blaze it, then it would be fantastic. Anyway guys, I've been Totally Dubbed. This has been the MSI GTX 1070 Gaming X Edition. Again, huge thanks to MSI for sending me out the card. If you want to see more, do look down in the description below, especially in terms of buying links, and let me know in the comments below what you think of this video, and more so about the card. Alright guys, take care and bye bye.